The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. You know him as Rabbi Neerman, Dr. Neerman, Joe's dad. Great Lawgic. The one person who probably leaves me stammering more than anyone else. I bring him back to you, my dad, whom I love. How are you this evening?
Thank
Daddy?
you. That's a very nice introduction. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that my son, I only saw about a half hour ago, that my son said, I'm going to fill you in on the historical background. I did not expect to do this. I'm happy to do it, but I want to do it fairly quickly
Hold on,
because there's a lot.
Dad. You can't tell about the lack of show prep. That's not how this works. You
Oh,
just
I'm
you
sorry.
transition. You spend 5 minutes covering what I said we're going to be talking about all night, and then you transition out. That's how.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. I'm not a showman.
I'm kidding.
Okay. Anyway, one of the things that I tell people who study with me is this. It's not what reality is necessarily at all. It's what people believe reality is. And the belief of reality impels action. Hitler may be cursed. When he made the wars, he was sure he was going to win the wars. That we can go on and on. All of these things that happen throughout history. People expect to win when they start up stuff. So this is very important to understand that there are certain mindset and certain things that people believe are true. Now, we have a cartoon that I sent to him, to a Good Logic. Can you show the cartoon, please?
I can, and I will presently.
Good. It's a cartoon from 1970s, the early 70s. All right, now, Scranton was Nixon's Secretary of State, and he made a comment here. All right, Scranton says occupiers have no legal right to change the character of Jerusalem. We're talking Jerusalem, but it could be all of Israel. All right. Hey, does that mean that Jordan illegally gained British?
Do you want me to read it, Dad? I can make it bigger.
You read it. I can hardly read it. Go ahead. You read it.
Let me see if I can
make it bigger.
A little bigger. There you go. There you go.
Does that mean that Jordan illegally changed British Jerusalem, which was illegally Turkish, after being illegally Mamluk, 1516, 1517, after it was illegally Crusader, 1187. That's when they lost it. Go ahead, move it down.
Are you sure it was 1187? I thought it was 1185.
No, it was 1187. Oh. Sorry. You're off. Okay.
That's possible.
After it was illegally Arab, all right, after it was illegally Byzantine, the Arabs took it from the Byzantine around 635. After being illegally Roman, after it was illegally Hellenized when the Greeks occupied it from us. No, I don't think that's what he means. The reason I'm showing you this is there is a very, very nice little video, which I saw about 3-4 weeks ago. It's put out by some Palestinian or pro-Palestinian people, and they make a statement that the whole Arab-Israeli conflict starts from 1915. There was no Jews, no nothing before. 1915. Why? Because in 1915, Britain and France wanted to win World War I, and they wanted to enlist the aid of the Arabs, and they didn't mind enlisting the aid of the Jews. So what did they do? They made a secret agreement to split the Middle East between themselves called the Sykes, S-Y-K.
Yes, the
Sykes-Picot, right? Yeah. And basically, France was going to get the Lebanon and Syria, roughly, and Iraq and what is then Transjordan, Palestine is going to go to the Brits. All right. But they also, the Brits made a deal or a promise to Sharif Hussein, who then was situated in Mecca and who then, what they thought at least, was ruling what is today Saudi, meaning Saudi Arabia. Excuse me. And they promised him various areas, including Jordan and Iraq, and also Syria. In fact, Faisal, well, becomes king of Iraq. He marches into Damascus after the war, expecting to become the king of Syria. In any event, so they start with that, and they say, well, and there's some Jews there, okay. And they don't mention, of course, that Sharif, that the Grand Mufti, of Jerusalem, who was very virulently nationalistic and virulently anti-Jewish, instigated riots, that these riots kept back and pushed the British to restrict Jewish immigration, and they restricted it during World War II, when the Jews would have run there, many of them, if they could have, and so on and so forth. So the bottom line being, they said, well, so the Jews are all latecomers. What's a latecomer?
That's what everyone says.
That's the point of the cartoon.
Right.
The point is that the Jews have a claim to this land we call the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, not the state of Israel, the land of Israel. We have a claim that goes back to Abraham. And in fact, in 1947, the Zionists opened up the Bible in the UN in order to state that we have a right to land there. Then in 48, even before the state was declared, they didn't all come before the state was come. Jordan, and then Syria and Egypt and Iraq and Lebanon all attacked and tried to destroy the Jews there. And out of that came the state of Israel.
Sam?
Yes, what?
A few questions. Okay. And some of these questions are coming from a conversation I had today with a Muslim friend of mine. He's a very smart guy. And I don't think that I legitimately believe him when he says, I don't want to see all Jews dead. And
I don't want to see what?
All Jews dead. He says, I despise Zionism. He said, I despise Zionism. And I think that Zionism needs to be eradicated, but I don't want to see all Jews dead. And I really believe him. I really believe him when he says this. And he tries to make the point that he's like, when Jews were first looking for a country, they were not even necessarily zeroing in on Israel or Palestine. They were zeroing in on Uganda.
That's correct.
South America.
Yeah, because that depends on which Jews. Religious Jews always wanted Israel. In fact, there is a custom when we say grace to remove the knives from the table, because suicide is abhorrent in Judaism. And supposedly some Jew in the Middle Ages, when he said at the end the grace of meals and rebuild Jerusalem speedily within our days, broke down in hysteria and plunged a knife into his chest. I don't believe it necessarily, but it's not a crazy thought, because that is the love for Jerusalem. Constantly, with 3 times a day on normal days, we pray, rebuild Jerusalem. We want to come to Jerusalem. Jerusalem has been intrinsically a part of Jewish consciousness since the time of the Romans 2,000 years ago.
And those prayers are not like just individual prayers. Those are prayers which were instituted how long ago? Would you say that?
About 2,300 years ago.
So, but I'm saying, like, as far as by including the whole part about rebuilding Jerusalem, that wouldn't have been rebuilding Jerusalem 2,200 years ago.
Well, that was even in there. The idea was to keep Jerusalem, to keep it rebuilt. Mm-hmm. And they rebuilt the temple 4 times, the second temple.
Mm-hmm. No, okay. So please.
So anyway.
Go on.
Okay. So the point is that the Jews really have a claim, and the Jews want to be there. Certainly the religious Jews want to be there. So what about all the non-religious Jews? We believe that all the Jews are brothers. I want to make this very clear. Those people at the music festival obviously were not observant because that was the Sabbath and it was Simchas Torah, and they weren't supposed to be partying with instruments at a concert. But the bottom line is their death to us is as if they were religious. No difference. I want to make that very clear. But among the religious Jews, among the non-religious Jews, many of them saw Israel as the Jewish land historically, and they wanted to return to it. They wanted to have a country of their own, the same way that the Hungarians wanted to be independent. And this is before World War I. Well, they at least had the split government after the Ausgleich of 1867. But all right, let's say the Poles wanted to be independent. They didn't have an independent country then. The Czechs, the Slovenes, and go on and on. All these guys wanted to have independent countries. Now, were the Jews there? Yes, there were Jews there. It's only after World War I that you get, or it's before World War I, as the Jews begin to come in, that there's an influx of more Muslims. And after World War I, more Muslims start coming in relatively quickly. These are the Palestinians. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. They weren't called Palestinians. That term was coined later. In fact, it was coined.
What were they called then? What were they called?
Called the area Syria. It was Greater Syria. That was
the area of Palestine was called the area of Greater Syria?
It was in the Vialet, which is the Turkish term for a province of Greater Syria. Yes. There was part of that. It may have.
When was the name Palestine? When was the name Palestine first?
Palestine. The name Palestine comes from the Latin. Philastin. There's no P in Arabic. Okay. Palestine comes from after the Jewish Bar Kokhba revolt, 135, 136 of the Common Era, Christian era. After that, Adrianus decided, I want to make the land Judenfrei, get rid of Jews, which he didn't completely do anyway, but he wanted to. And I'm going to rename it. He called Jerusalem Eliolina Capitolina, which is alluding to Jupiter and the capital, the high capital there. That name never stuck. But he renamed Judea. It was called Judea, which means the land of Jews, Palestine. And why did he call it Palestina? Because it's named for the Philistines, and he knew the Jews and Palestine and Philistines were enemies.
Right. It was a way of deriding the Jews, but I just want to be clear. So it has been called Palestine for like the last 1,800 years. Is that accurate?
No, that area was not called that. No.
So what was it called in 1,000 years ago?
I think it was called Syria. There was no concept like this.
And that was something else I was thinking about.
It was an open area. It was it was an area of dispute between the Hamdanids and other groups during the 9th and 10th century. Later on, Zangia Mosul comes in. He throws out the Crusaders in Edessa, and he basically it's known that's Turks. He's a Turk, and so forth. The name Palestine is not the area name that I don't know exactly when it was picked up formally. I mean, by World War I, it was there, but not until that period. Now,
I'm just trying. There's one other question. Something I threw out yesterday, which I remember seeing somewhere, but I don't remember where.
Can you speak more loudly? I can barely hear you.
Yeah, I'll try to speak a little more loudly, Daddy. I threw something out yesterday that I remember seeing, but I don't remember where I saw it. So I'm hoping you can confirm this for me. And if I was mistaken, then you'll correct me. And that is that historically, the concept of nationalism being the measure by which people identified is not something that was happening everywhere throughout the ages. And it was more common in the West that, like, let's say, we know that 300 years ago, in the Americas. All the colonists referred to themselves as New Yorkers, Virginians. You identified by your locale, right? I
Okay.
mean,
Correct.
you didn't call yourself an American. You called
No,
yourself.
and you were a Jerusalemite. You were a Tripolian. You were a Tsur.
Well, that was my question. Were people
Yes,
identifying by their locale, or were they
yes.
identifying
And
more
there are
as by?
names like that.
But my
People who
question,
have the name Yerushalmi, which is in Hebrew, that Qudsi in Arabic means from Jerusalem. That's the Arabic word for Jerusalem, holy
oh,
place.
so like when they say like Rabbi Yossi Galilee, that he's from the Galilee region,
Right.
that's so it wouldn't be the entire country. It would be like a little
It's an area
of some land that you come from. That's how people identify, rather than on a national type of
I'll tell you a
perspective.
little personal story. To the people who are listening, I wrote my doctorate on the Crusades, relations between the Muslims and the Christians. And I had one of the nicest men I've ever met. He was a very devout Roman Catholic, Professor Marshall Baldwin, who was my mentor, one of my two mentors. Both he and the other gentleman, Max Corder-Peter, are now in the other world. Max passed away very recently. In fact, I looked him up and I found he had just passed away.
Rest in peace.
In any event, Marshall Baldwin, one day, I was sitting in his office. I was a senior in college then. And I'm sitting in his office and he goes, Harris, it's my English name. He says, Harris, I'm glad you're not like I have a graduate student who thinks there was nationalism in 1200. No such thing. In fact, some of you know a little bit the history of Europe and France. 1851, 52, Louis Napoleon declares the Second French Empire. And until the Germans bossed them out, there's a very strong fervor of French empire and nationalism. It was a dilettante historian who did a lot of work on Cyprus. His name was Malatrie, Maslatrie. And this fellow writes there was a pirate who kidnapped the wife of the guy on who I was doing the research. And this is what he writes. Une sorte de révolte nationalistique, sort of a nationalistic revolt. And I looked at it and I said, oh, come on, Malatrie. You was sucked up in Napoleon's nationalism. There ain't no such thing as nationalism in 1193 when this happened.
Oh, so you're saying in the time of Napoleon, when people would say "Vive la France," so
well,
that
was Napoleon the third, his nephew. But still, yes, that got them into trouble with the Prussians and the Germans. That's why they lost the Franco-Prussian War. Because of that. That's why they got in the war and they lost the war.
So, when did nationalism actually take root in the Middle East? Because I assume that it took root in the West. I assume it took root in the West before it took root in the Middle East.
George Antonius wrote a whole analysis of this, saying in the very late 1800s, early 1900s, Muhammad Abdu was one of the first ones to talk about Arab nationalism. That's the beginning of Arab nationalism.
When was that?
Really,
sorry,
as a nationalism.
When did you say?
What?
What did you say? When was that?
His name is Muhammad Abdu.
No, when was that?
Oh, late 1890s, early 1900s.
Okay,
that's when you first have them.
And that makes sense, because that actually makes a great deal of sense, because we know that it definitely was there in the West. During World War I. I mean, nationalism was already very strong in amongst all the countries.
It's one of the causes of World War I. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely is. It's not something that was like, that just sprung up over the last 60 years or so. But
no.
But you're saying that
here's the other question.
19th century was when it
here's the
really
question. Is it Arab nationalism? Is it Jordanian nationalism? Egypt, all right, separate case. Syrian nationalism? Iraq? It's not so simple. It's Arab nationalism. Yeah. And that would be a pan-Arab state. But there are too many people who have such vested interest in that not happening. It's not likely to happen in your lifetime, much less in my lifetime. I would not expect to see that.
Hold on one second. I just want to grab a couple of super chats here. Monk in Training is saying it was part of the Ottoman Empire.
What?
Israel or Palestine.
Yeah, of course.
Name Palestine came back when the Brits took over.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what was formerly back. Mhm.
Well, so my question is this: when they after Sykes-Picot, they end up dividing up the area into Transjordan and Palestine slash
There's
Israel,
Jordan, Syria, the Lebanon, Iraq, and Palestine.
right? And the size of Transjordan compared to Israel, it's like
Much
its
bigger.
landmass. It's like
It
20
will
times the
include the
size,
West
right?
Bank too. And also, though, most of it is desert.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
lot of desert. If you drive from the area near Jericho, right, Jericho, if you drive up from there to Tiberias, through the valley, you'll see on the other side tons of settlement. And at night, it's all lit up with lights. Why? Because that's where the bulk of the population of Jordan lives.
Okay.
They live over there. And until now, for the past few years, you're welcome. All
Yeah.
right, Liz, thank you. Um, the Until recently, like the past week, you could cross back and forth. In
Right.
fact, I was toying with the idea. I'm not going for a different reason anyway, of actually going to Abu Dhabi, to Dubai, simply to have a chance to talk Arabic over there and
Mhm.
see and talk to the Arabs. But I don't think I'm going for other reasons, totally other reasons. It's very much, it's way too materialistic over there for me. I don't think I want to go.
Okay. What about the Canaanites?
7 nations, God said to kick them out. By the way, and many of them were kicked out. We kicked them out, most of them.
We also don't know who the Canaanites are today. I
We
mean,
don't know. We don't know. The
nobody knows who
Bible
the
says we
Canaanites
don't
are.
know. Nobody knows who they were. That they disappeared as a group. It was very funny. About 40 years ago, one of the Arabs from Syria comes over to me. He says, "I am a Canaanite," like this. So I looked at him and I said, "Well, according to the Bible, then we should extirpate you," like this. He didn't like that answer. But anyway, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Valiant Renegade is another streamer, a good friend of mine here. Good to see you, Valiant. From the Catholic Boy, woe be unto those who stand against Israel. You are fools before God. So there you go.
Well, thank you. We pray. I
Yes.
pray constantly. I sent money today. A lot of money I gave out today. A lot of money I gave. I have the excuse me. The brother-in-law of one of my grandsons by marriage lives in a settlement surrounded by 4 Arab villages. And they're afraid what's going to happen now with this. And they sent out an appeal. They have guys with guns to defend, but they want to get those armored vests. They cost $800 a piece and other equipment. So my wife and I sent money to them today.
All right.
Anyway, yes.
Samuel Williams, Founding Fathers, says, I use the great Lawgic shows in my homeschool classes for my kids. Am I wrong to think if Palestine would just be peaceful and Israel would be too, or is that too simple?
Well, okay. I was going to get into this later, but I'll deal with this now. Maybe we'll do it this way.
Okay.
As I said before, 1948, the Arabs attack. When they attack, they announce to the Arabs living there, who outnumbered the Jews, but not by much. And originally, the Jews, they were supposed to have more land than they got in 48. We beat them back and took some of that land. But the other Arabs told them, leave, and you'll come back after we destroy the Jews. The other Arab nations told them to get out, and we'll do it. Then, after the war, which they call the Nakba, the disaster, and we call the war for independence. After that, then the Arabs had them there, and they refused to settle them. The Egyptians created the Gaza Strip for them, which was a huge refugee camp, basically, that they created. And the Jordanians did that also in the West Bank, which today the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria, the biblical names. They did that. And why? Because they wanted a sore, so they were figuring that ultimately that will bring back, the territory, all the territory, they'll get rid of Israel. Let me go on this, because this is very important. Israel celebrated this year 75 years of its existence. Now, I want you in the audience to stop and think. You were raised, however old you may be, whether you be 20 or 40 or 60 or maybe my age. How were you raised? What did your mother tell you? What did your father tell you? What did your grandparents tell you? What was the truth of your life? I remember what I started with. Level of expectations. The Palestinians were told they're coming back. They are going to get back that tree, which of course doesn't exist anymore, by that little old house, which today is a big apartment complex someplace. They're going to get it back. And the same way that I know I am sitting at 160, I don't want to give the address, you never know who's listening. I'm sitting in this house and I'm here on this computer. And I know that. They believe this. Now, to make matters
Saying they know with the same level of certainty that they will go back.
Some of them do.
You're sitting in your library.
This is what I was going to tell you before. Now I thought of it. You reminded me. In 1968, when I was doing my research on the Crusades and on the Arabs, so I see a book in Arabic, the history of the Crusades. I want to look at it. I want to see the Arab side of this event. So I get the book. It's a thin little book, maybe 150, 100 pages. I open up to the foreword and I read the foreword. 1950 is the date. I am writing this book in order to explain that it took us 200 years before we got rid of all the Crusaders. If it takes us 200 years, we will get rid of the Zionists. Somebody said to me today, I told them what Egypt published. They published that we're Nazis, that the Israelis are Nazis, they said, and basically rah-rah Hamas. That's what they said. Now, it's in there, and their newspapers are controlled. Jordan said the similar. It shows you what the peace treaties are worth, which, by the way, I don't know if you remember, but your mother, may she rest in peace. When Sadat made the treaty, I said, wait, I don't know how long this thing's going to last. I'm glad it lasted as long as it did.
Camp David, 1979.
No, I know that. I
remember it. I had a cousin who was born the day the treaty was signed. Mayor was born the day that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Anyway.
It was a big event when the treaty was signed.
Yes.
Egypt
and people made a lot of hoopla about it.
That was the one accomplishment of Jimmy Carter's.
And Saddam put his life on the line, and Islambuli murdered him. And Iran made a stamp honoring Islambuli, the guy who murdered Saddam. All right, that's what the mullahs did in Iran. They did that. All right. Anyway, so if someone is fed this stuff for 4 generations, what do you think he's going to think? Not only that, in Islam, there is the concept of shahid. Shahid comes from the Arabic word to testify. The shahada is the testifying or profession of the faith, which in Arabic is no God, but God, Muhammad is the prophet of God. But a shahid is someone who testifies to the faith.
That's really interesting because sahadi in Aramaic means testify.
Right, same word. It's a cognitive word. That's correct. Yes, exactly right. All right. Hamas is also cognitive, but has different meaning. Hamas in Arabic means strong and viral. Not viral.
Viral.
Oh, what's the word?
Viral.
Viral. Sorry, strong and viral. But it means violent in Hebrew. Play Hamas machorseich. All right. Anyway, so the bottom line is that these guys look at it this way: if I die, I go to heaven right away on an express train. If I live, we can recreate Palestine. So this is a win-win. Now, quite interesting. Barry, do I have it here? Yeah. Barry sent me. Barry is a friend. He's a lawyer who's a friend of Good Logic, and a very good. He was a former student of mine, a very close friend. Barry sent me, and he says the Israelis made this poll, and it's very surprising. I wasn't surprised at all. I don't know why they were surprised. Basically, it says that 71% of the population approved of the cold-blooded murder of two Jewish guys, all right, by Hamas terrorists while they were driving through Hawara, which is the town there on the border there. All right, 68% support the creation. This was taken, by the way, this poll about 8 months ago. All right, 68% support creation of armed terror group to attack Israelis. 83% are against the surrender of existing. In other words, that they shouldn't be given over. 87%, all right, say that the PA security forces supposed to keep peace don't have the right to arrest Hamas guys. So Hamas is popular. These people actually expect that this is going to happen, whether it's they or their children or their grandchildren. That is why I have totally opposed the two-state solution. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Sharon gave them Gaza, and look what happened. If you give them the West Bank, you'll make the West Bank into another Gaza. You can't give them anything. I have a suggestion. It's not very practical, but it will really pop them. They're going to invade, destroy 1 square mile of housing, and annex it to Israel. The one thing they don't want is to lose territory to Israel. That's much better than destroying everything or killing them off. But if Hamas's efforts cause them to lose territory, that will get them, they'll be furious, but they'll say, wait a minute, maybe that will dent them. Now, another thing that someone in the Shin Bet suggested that I also occurred to me, and I am not advocating this, because if I do, your Muslim friend will hate me, and I'm not advocating it. But, someone said that they're doing it, the Israelis. I don't think so. If they're doing it, they're not publicizing it, for sure. We said that according to, the Quran doesn't say it, by the way. The Hadith, which is oral tradition, talk about this. But excuse me, I need a tissue. Just a minute. Sorry. According to several madhab are paths, legal systems. There are 4 to 5, depending how you count, legal systems in Islam. A shahid, as we said before, he's going to go to heaven. There's one way to keep him from going to heaven. Again, I'm not suggesting this.
Oh, you're saying
bury him
in
pig skin. And an Israeli security person suggested in an article which I saw today. I looked up a couple of things for this, and I saw that. And if they know that, maybe it'll make them more reticent about getting killed and running and shooting up people. Maybe. I don't know. I certainly, I think, would inhibit them. That's another aspect. Now, there are a couple of things I downloaded a few things here, but this, I think, is very interesting. First of all, today, there's a newspaper called the Jewish Press.
I want to at some point get back. We didn't even finished the last super chat, and I feel like
I'm sorry. What was this?
That's okay. And there's a whole bunch more that have popped in here. So, I sort of want to try and get to people. So let's do that. I promise people you were going to answer questions, and there's a lot of questions.
Let's do that then.
So the question that was pending is, would it be that, am I wrong to think that if Palestine would just be peaceful and Israel would be too, or is that too simple?
No, wouldn't happen.
No, that so
They want everything.
oh, so you're saying that won't happen, but you're saying
It
if
won't
you could
happen
snap
because
your
they
fingers.
want everything.
No, but if
And if you
the
question
point, I
that,
don't think that's the question, Daddy. I think you're misunderstanding the question, respectfully. I think the point of the question is, if for whatever reason you could snap your fingers and Palestinians would stop being, it would say, yeah, we'll take a two-state solution. So would Israel be happy to have peace with them, or they still be attacking Palestine?
no, they'll attack Israel from there. That's what I'm saying.
No, I get that you're saying that won't happen. What I'm saying is, if that did happen,
If
does
what
Israel,
happened?
if Palestinians were to
We're
actually
peaceful. Would
lay
Israel
down,
be peaceful?
actually,
I believe so.
I mean, I can't imagine why they I can't imagine
Israel
why they
doesn't
wouldn't
want
be.
war. We don't look. They honor their martyrs and their sons who die. We cry over our sons who die.
Yeah,
It's a whole different culture.
it is.
Absolutely.
That's a great way of phrasing it. That's a great way of phrasing it. They build memorials to anyone who kills themselves, killing
And
others.
of course, they
Anyone who
pay.
dies trying to kill others.
The PLO uses American money to pay those who kill Jews. That's where the money's going, some of it.
Jewish civilians.
It's called pay for slay. I have in the computer here the chart. The younger you are when you do it, as you get older, the amount doubles. There was a gentleman who was raised and is a friend of his, raised in this Ari Fold, who was murdered. And I got an email today saying that he was murdered by a Palestinian. And I got an email today saying the Palestinians' monthly stipend was doubled from $500 and something to $1,000 something. All right, and that's translating from shekel over.
It's so
yes.
sick. It's
okay.
so sick. Let me get to a couple more of these. So, Joe,
thank you very much. I appreciate it. May
is,
you be blessed the same way. I wish you the same.
Thank you for sharing, and blessings to both of you. Vic's weed dealer says, commenting because Susie's enjoying listening to your father. This is a friend of mine, and Susie is a reference to his wife, is enjoying listening to your father, but also because she heard your Auschwitz rant last night and loved every minute. First time she ever agreed with anything that you ever said ever in your life about anything, Joe. And that's almost certainly true. So thanks, and blow that damn show for.
I'm not sure I understand this, but
yeah, no. So basically, this is a friend of mine who is a very good friend of mine, whose wife is. We'll just call her Susie, just because.
Well, may he eradicate a lot of weeds and
yesterday,
get many good clients.
Yesterday,
may he sell it where it's legal.
The name is the name is a joke. The name is a joke. He's not really a weed dealer. But it's an inside joke between he and I. But the rant that they're talking about is last night someone made a comparison between Auschwitz and Gaza. And when I
if it was so, those guys that kicked down the fence would be electrified. Number one. Number two, the Israeli army every day would line them up. Those that didn't look good would be shot. You want more, Mr. Whoever you are? I can give you a list.
No, he's on your side. This guy's definitely on your side. He's very proud.
No, not him. I know he's on my side. Whoever said that?
It was a woman last night.
That's ridiculous.
It's a woman last night.
It's another one of the calumnies that they throw out.
Yeah,
the anti-Semites.
I ranted for like 7 minutes at a $5 super chat that actually just made a reference to Auschwitz and Gaza in the same breath, and I just lost it. And apparently that's the first thing in my life that his wife ever agreed with me on, because she doesn't.
Oh, by the way, I just want to make another comment. Anyone that tells you that the Israelis are evil and hate Arabs, tell him that a known terrorist was elected by Arab Israeli citizens to the Knesset, and he sat in the Knesset. All right? The Israelis who are citizens can vote, They go to university. And in fact, it's a problem that there's in the universities because of them. Because I'll tell you what the
You
problem
mean
is.
Arabs? You mean Israeli
With the
Arabs?
Arabs, yeah. I'll tell you,
Israeli
it's a
Arabs.
social problem. It's not a problem that they go and get educated. That's fine. Many of them decide they want to marry a Jewish, and they can have more than one wife, a Jewish girl, because that way she will not produce Jews to them, although in Jewish law they are Jewish, but they'll be raised as Arabs.
Mhm.
So what they do is, if their name is Musa, they say it's Moshe, which is Hebrew, or Yusuf, they say Yosef, or whatever, etc., and so forth, and they date the girls. And there's a whole business with this going on. It's less today than it used to be, but it used to be really rife in many of the colleges.
All right. Trenton Paul gets a show for all saying, until people value their sons more than they hate their enemies. I'll tell you this. This is what I think my father was trying to say before. It's not a matter of not valuing their sons. That's the thing. You know, I remember back in the 80s, I had an English teacher when I was in like 10th grade who played a song by Sting called The Russians, which was basically, I hope the Russians love their children too. And there was a concept as far as, you know, worrying about, you know, your sons going off, you know, the valuing your own family more than you value destroying your enemies. And the difference here is that and Dad, please correct me if I'm mistaken, that when you were saying it's a win-win, it's that they look at their sons who die as martyrs as better off, that they're going to heaven. If your mindset is that your entire purpose on this world is to get to heaven, and that's why we're all here, and you genuinely believe it, that mindset is very
That's
foreign.
what I'm saying. It's
That's
what
very
you think
foreign
it
to most
is.
Westerners. They can't appreciate that. That the same way you might dream of your son or daughter growing up to outperform you in capitalism and be far more successful than you, or far better athlete, or far more talented, whatever, and that's where you get your pride. Their pride is if they feel that their child is going to heaven. And if you believe that your child, by blowing themselves up in an attempt to help restore the land of Palestine to Arabs in whatever small way they feel it's trying to accomplish that their child is going to heaven, they do not mourn. They do not feel that they did a poor job as a parent. They feel they did a wonderful job in raising a child who is so properly religious and respectful to God's will of returning Palestine to Arab control. And that's why it's not a matter of that they're not valuing their sons. That's how, to someone who's a fundamentalist, that's how they are valuing.
And that is why, even if the Israelis kill 50,000, which they won't, God forbid, I would say, even, but so what?
From their perspective, you're saying from their perspective.
That perspective,
right.
So what?
Right.
We have a Western perspective on life and human life, and it's a different way to look at it. That's what I was talking about martyrs before.
Right.
That's the whole point of the Shahid or Shahadun, martyrs. That, listen to this for a minute. It's going to take 3 minutes. This is an opinion piece in the Jerusalem Post. And on that October day, waves of evil engulfed southern Israel. It was a day of bloodshed and destruction as anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism reinforced each other, a day of elders slaughtered and toddlers kidnapped. By the way, I have graphic descriptions of how babies were murdered. If you want, I don't know if you want to hear it. All right. A party goers mowed down and synagogue goers' corpses desecrated. It was a day that imposed unspeakable traumas on thousands of survivors who, though lucky to be alive, will carry emotional and physical scars with them to their last breath. And was this the best day in Palestinian history? This is their great victory. This is their best shot. It says so much about them and, by contrast, about us. This bloodthirstiness is Palestinians' political culture's fatal flaw. That's what he says. I'm not sure. The sadism of October 7th should prove to all the blame Israel firsters how perverse, how perverse the Palestinian terrorists they romanticize are. The bloodbath illustrates why Israel must defend itself vigorously, why Palestinians must not control the hills, one RPG shot away from Ben Gurion Airport's runways. This is a leftist writing, by the way. and why it's so hard to trust those people as a people. And he goes on, I mean, here, and the whole thing. And he talks about communal solidarity and how we worry about each person and how we take care of people. And now, to be fair to them, they do too. Hamas has a benevolent society, and they do take care of people. But anyone who opposes them politically is likely to be killed, or at least beaten up badly. But people, widows and stuff, they, as long as they're not, in quotes, traitors, they will take care of them. They do that. That is part of Islam, and they do that.
WO says, agree, the Auschwitz rant was epic. I'm still pissed at that comparison. And I've seen it more and more. I've seen it more and more.
There's a billionaire. I had that here. There's a billionaire. All that, again, I've explained this before, but maybe people weren't here or forgot or remind them. During the 70s, the Arabs got a lot of money, so they endowed chairs in universities in Middle Eastern studies. And of course, the requirement was the person had to be anti-Israel. Now, a person with a chair has a lot of influence. So many of the universities are very strongly anti-Israel. Listen to this. As a fellow, I didn't know who he was. Billionaire Bill Ackman has called for the release of the names of all Harvard students who signed a letter holding Israel entirely responsible for the attacks by Hamas terrorists, so the prospective hires can be blacklisted from top Wall Street firms. A group of 33 student organizations, 33 organizations, not people, at Harvard, led by Harvard undergraduate Palestinian Solidarity Committee, released a statement on social media on Saturday, arguing that Israel's apartheid regime, of course it's not apartheid regime, it's ridiculous, created the impetus for the war. The statement, today's events did not occur in a vacuum, the letter said. For the last 2 decades, millions of Palestinians in Gaza have been forced to live in an open-air prison. Why? Because they want to kill Israel. What would you do if you had someone to kill you?
So okay, so I want to throw some stuff back at you, and there's a lot more questions that people have for you. But
good, I want to hear them.
Well, but I have a few questions of my own. So a lot of people use this term apartheid, and they refer to Israel treating Arabs as second-class citizens, or Gaza as being an open air prison. So, what are your thoughts about those perspectives?
Well, I already addressed the first part. I said a guy who's a semi-terrorist sits in the parliament because the Arabs voted him in. Israeli Arabs who are citizens can vote.
Okay.
That's number one. And they go to college. I told you what they do in the college. They go to college. They have good jobs. I've encountered them in various places. I've spoken Arabic to some of them, much to their surprise when they look at me. I mean, I don't look like the typical person who studied Arabic. But anyway, so no, the Arabs have equal opportunity if they are citizens. Now, these other guys.
Now, what does that mean as far as if they're citizens? What's the difference between what are the inhibitors for an Arab to become an Israeli citizen?
Okay, he has to have been living in before or descended from someone who was there from 48. Someone in the other territories should be under the PLO and able to function there. The PLO has been given many billions of dollars by Europeans and America, not to pay for slay, but to pay people and educate them and to basically try to elevate the economics throughout the territory they control. Now, here's the other problem. I mentioned this before. I'm going to be more specific. The schools, Palestinian schools, by and large, teach that Israel stole the land, that the Jews are oppressors, etc. All the stuff you hear that's not true is being taught. they're fed this with their mother's milk.
But what
If
makes you so certain that that your perspective is true? Because this is one of and I'm not saying you're wrong. I want to try and steel man, okay? And because I had a lengthy talk today on the phone with a gentleman who I've had on this show here before. He's a very smart guy. It's the guy I was referencing earlier tonight, okay? And he firmly believes that Israel did steal this land from Arabs. And the more I was talking to him, the more apparent it became to me that when you're parsing through history, I think that it's very possible and very easy for people to take from a group of people isolated few or isolated incidents and show that as being representative of everything. So, for example, he was the one who made that point to me about Jews looking for Uganda or South American countries to build into a homeland, and saying, you see, Jews didn't even care about it. And what I said to him was, if you look through, if we take something that's politically neutral, okay.
All right.
If we take something politically neutral, I can give you lots of historical things. We look at the Black community, and you want to look at the situation they're dealing in and why they're in that situation. So depending on how you choose to frame it, you can focus on terrible oppressions that happen to Black people that are inexcusable.
100%.
Or you could focus on historical terrible decisions by large segments of the Black community and trying to cast the blame on them. And
100%.
both of you are picking true incidents, but fixating on this one rather than that one. And each side is fixing on opposite things. And I said it dawned on me that perhaps this is part of the reason that there's such a bitter feud, is that we're each being raised by different cultures who are presenting the cherry-picked moments as being supporting the narrative that is being spoon-fed to them. And my question to you is this: why should someone who's supporting Israel believe that the history that you're presenting is not whitewashing past any evidence that would support the counter narrative that Israel is oppressive, colonialization, or something to that, and did steal the land? I want to know what to say to someone like this in order to say, no, I understand why you would think that my training is wrong, but here's why I can trust in this as not being mere framing, but an actual fair representation of historical perspective.
Okay, well, maybe I wasn't fully clear. I thought that my whole presentation for the first 10, 15 minutes dealt with this.
No, but what I'm saying is, you talked about this. My question is, like, what do I say to someone who says, well, that's ignoring this thing, that's ignoring that thing, that's ignoring, and it's ignoring all the...
I don't know what the things are. You answer me, you give me the things, I'll answer you.
Okay.
You're going to argue that there were more Arabs here. I admit there were more Arabs here.
So that's one thing. So as they say, there were more Arabs here, and there was an influx between 1917 and 1948, purposefully designed to flood the area with Jews.
The Arabs were about 60% to 65% of the population.
What about
and the reason, but the Jews weren't allowed in. That's why.
He's a firm believer that the refugees did not voluntarily walk out the door and go to Gaza, but that they were ripped from their homes by IDF.
No, none of that. One time, there was one incident, Dar Yassin, which is now known as Har Nof, where Begin's guys came in and did that. That's the only incident. There are about 7 or 8 incidents where the Arabs did that. Look at Kfar Etzion, where they came in and they massacred them because they ran out of bullets and surrendered, and they shot them dead. And not only that, the wounded were in a bunker and they threw a hand grenade in the bunker. You think this is new, slaughtering people? It's not new. This is a lot of people in the Middle East do this.
I understand. I understand that
we generally do not do this.
This has become a PR war.
Right, it's a PR war. And also, when Begin's guys came in there, they thought, they were wrong, but they thought that there were people with guns and ammo in those buildings they shot up. They didn't do it simply to kill the women and the kids. Here at Kfar Etzion, they massacred the people. They weren't soldiers. they were wounded, and there were women in the bunker there, 2 or 3 women. Mostly the women have been evacuated with the kids. But the bottom line is there's a different attitude how to deal with people. Even now, with all the bombing is not aimed at children.
Right.
It's not the same as coming into an apartment, seeing children there and slitting their throats so the blood runs over the parents, which happened. Killing babies. This is what the Nazis did. You want to talk about Nazis? That's what the Nazis did.
Yeah, and Carson Depp supports that, saying when Arabs slaughtered scores of Jews in Hebron in 1929, were they upset about the Nakba of 1948, the occupation of
right? Of course not.
Gaza
Right.
in 2023?
That Haj Amin al-Husseini motivated that. And you know about him. I explained him on the show. I showed a whole film about him on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to go over it. I'll go over it.
He was the one who got in bed. He was the one who
he
got
recruited
in bed
for the Wehrmacht. He petitioned governments not to let Jews out because he figured if the governments let the Jews out, eventually they'd come to Palestine. He wanted the Jews killed by the Nazis because if the Jews are killed by the Nazis, they can't come to Palestine. I'm sorry. You got me excited. You see what I get
I'm not trying to get you excited,
Daddy. I know you're not, but you do.
Daddy, the reason I'm asking these questions is that I know how to respond back if it's thrown at me. Because if I don't have you walk me through it, in that case, I feel ill-equipped. You're my source for history. So I need to express to you the questions that are thrown at me so I can be better prepared. Otherwise, I feel ill-equipped. They're citing information. You know, I'm like, I don't know anything about Kfar Etzion. You know, it's like Kfar Etzion is a street in Talpiot to me. I don't know anything about, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know anything about these incidents. That's why I throw this at you so that I can understand, you know, better how to better deal with
Candace Strike from Canada, I see. Okay.
I know you just started. Hello, Mr. Great Lawgic, but please advise. Last Thursday, 800 settlers stormed Al-Aqsa. Is it true Mitzrayim Jews and Netanyahu's coalition want to rebuild their temple there?
I don't know. I didn't know they did this. If they did it, they're wrong. I'll say unequivocally they're wrong.
But the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the dome?
It's up there on the hill. It's on the Har HaBayis, on the Temple Mount.
800 settlers
stormed. All right. Mizrahim Jews, all right, that may be in his coalition or not. There is no right today. None of their great rabbis, and I've studied some of the responses from their rabbis, none of the great rabbis of their group would say they should build a temple now. They should not do it. They're wrong. That's wrong what they did. And when they stormed it, did they kill anybody? Did they slaughter the worshipers? I don't think so. Again, there's a difference. I'm not vindicating what they did. No, they're wrong. But it's wrong.
I'm seeing
if that happened. I don't know exactly what happened. So, I don't know the source for this. Again, you know, I see
a lot of Arab-based papers which are certainly consistently making this claim that this incident happened. I can share it with you here so you can see. Just I'm not going to go through all the different sources, but I can show you my Google search or my DuckDuckGo search, which is my version of Google, which basically shows here that over 800, this is newarab.com is saying, here, I'll make this a little bigger. Over 800 Israeli settlers storm Al-Aqsa compound. That's according to New Arab, Al Jazeera, New Arab again, Middle East Eye, Al Jazeera.
They should not have done this.
So, and they actually have pictures up here from what I can see of Jews with
they should not have done this.
Lulav and Esrog, who seem like, I don't know if this is an Al-Aqsa. I've obviously never been up there. But
no, we don't go up there. Although I will make a comment about all of this.
It looks like they're praying. It looks like they're actually.
They may have gone in there to pray. It's possible.
That's what it looks like it's happening.
No, I've never gone into a mosque in my life.
Because they're wearing prayer shawls. They don't tend to walk around wearing that, and we only use
they're probably praying.
The lulav and esrog for the purpose.
They're probably barged in there to pray.
Prayer services.
They certainly were not killing people. They were not hitting people. They were not. All right.
So as far as this,
yes.
So I don't know. That's a coalition to rebuild the temple. Like that's not.
No, I don't believe that. That doesn't sound like logical. Yeah. I'd like to see that from them, not from someone who's claiming that. See,
Yeah.
people take A and they build a pyramid on it in order to make it worse.
Right.
Is you're not allowed to build such a thing. In fact, something that most people don't know. Back around 200 BCE, 200 years before the Christian era, Jews in Alexandria at Leontopolis built a temple, a second holy temple. And it was later destroyed by the non-Jews. But it did exist there, and they were condemned for this because it's a lot easier to go to the temple there than go to Jerusalem and make the pilgrimage. But bottom line is that I again, there's a lot of hyperbole on these things.
All right. Marcel DeForce says, I love a series from down in its history. It'd be so interesting. Pony Up says, is it true that cannibals are so named from Canaans, I guess Canaanites, that sacrificed children to Baal and ate the flesh of men? I've never heard that. So now, even though I've heard
never heard. I don't know what cannibals are. I know that the Midianites sacrificed to Avodah Zarah and ate and killed their children. But I don't know the etymology of that word. I'm sorry. Don't know.
All right. Secular archaeologists, according to Monk and Training, believe the 7 Canaanite nations became the 13 tribes of Israel. So even if you deny the Bible, there isn't a lot in your favor.
You know, a lot of people deny the Bible. So what?
Yeah, I don't.
The Arabs accept the Bible.
That's true. They do.
Islam accepts the Bible.
They accept the New Testament as well, right?
Yes, the Christian New Testament also. Yes, absolutely.
Vince Clortho says, I always thought that every Israeli home had at least an assault rifle. Why were these settlements so vulnerable?
Because they don't all. Many of them don't.
Oh, and remember the following 3 months. Woohoo! Great job. Della Sandor says, your father's always right. I studied this, wrote so many papers, studied this. I was raised well. Always be prepared because enemy is patient.
Oh, yeah, they're very patient. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Allegan News says, we will go back to Sumerians now. We just need to find them. Or will we go back to Sumerians now? Or we just need to find them? Or we can go back to Empire of Sargon. Dennis says, with all due respect, the only reason Israel exists is because the U.S. decided so. American cash, weapons, political power, and the Jewish people determination made it happen. Historical events are second.
Woo, woo. All right. First of all, that's very nice. In 1948, it's true that Truman recognized Israel more before anyone else. But the Americans did not directly fund anything in 48. We got nothing then in 48 from them, or Israel got nothing. It's not we. I was here. All right. In 48, I was a kid then. All right. I would also say something else. The Jewish people wanted it to happen. The Zionists wanted it to happen. Absolutely. Now, I do believe that. And by the way, this is something the Arabs are claiming. The Arabs are claiming that the only reason the Jews got it is because of the fact of the Holocaust. And I don't want to get into that really, because from a religious point of view, that might be the reason. From a religious, not a political point, and that's very, very different. But the bottom line is that the Zionists, or the Jews that were in Israel, in 1948 up to 50, the first war, the War for Independence, or Nakba, as they call it, the Arabs, that was, they were pretty much on their own then. They made a movie about Mickey Marcus. He was an American who volunteered, a Jew who went there and volunteered, and he was killed. And they showed a scene which was not completely fake. That was a scene, I think Frank Sinatra was in that film. And he had a Piper Cub plane, and he's dropping empty bottles, soda bottles, and the Arabs are running. There was a joke that was told about this, and this is not wrong, this joke, because it reflects on what was going on with the Arabs. Most of the Arab soldiers were conscripts. They did not want to fight. They were ordered to fight by, and the officers generally sent them ahead to die, and they stayed behind. The joke was that the Arab officer, it's in Hebrew, with El Kadima, go forward, and the Jewish officer says, Acharai, follow me. My sister-in-law, first trip to Israel was 1969, so it's 2 years after the Six-Day War. And she met a cab driver. And the cab driver was talking to her, said, "You want to know how we got to the Golan Heights?" He says, "Because of the crazy Moshe." Moshe's the name. Crazy Moshe. What do you mean? He said, "Well, Moshe said, 'Boys, we got orders to go up on the Golan Heights.'" And we said, "Moshe, there's Arabs up there, and they got guns, and they're going to shoot us if we go up there." And Moshe said, "Boys, we got to go up to the Golan Heights." And then Moshe starts running to the Golan Heights. And we looked at each other. We said, "That crazy Moshe is going to get killed. We got to take care of him." And they ran after him, and we got the Golan Heights. Now, obviously, it's an exaggeration. I mean, I know how the Golan Heights is taken. It's an exaggeration. But there's a point there. And that's the point, is that at the Israeli officers, a lot of them are killed. And the men love them. The esprit de corps is incredible. And I've studied armies for a long time. That makes a difference. Makes a very big difference. It can be the difference between victory and defeat many times. The Arabs didn't have that.
Great story, Dad. Della Sanders says, and I mean that sincerely.
Well, thank you.
Some people say that. Some people. I just realized after that came out of my mouth, a lot of people say that in like a sarcastic type of way, but I actually meant that very sincerely. And Della Sanders says, "Your dad is my dad." Jam, new member for 3 months. It's good to see. Great Lawgic. Love you both. Thank you so much. Remember the following: Pam running. Shalom, Dad. Joe, dinner at your house must have been amazing. Dinner at my house was amazing. That's one way to phrase it. Dinner at my house, because my mom, rest her soul, she also was an historian. And when I was growing up, dinner at my house was conversations about Abu Jazeera and my father and names that I never heard and never registered, and just became like water off a duck's back. Or my mother, whose fascination was in the Far East and China. So, talking about the Ming Dynasty versus the Wu Dynasty versus, I don't even know. But yeah, and that's what conversations at my dinner table were. And yeah, it was amazing.
By the way, I would mention, it's interesting. So you mentioned that. But I just made me think of something. I have here a headline. I'm trying to find it. The headline is that a British minister who comes from Scotland, but a British minister in the government, says that his mother-in-law is in dire danger in Gaza. Turns out he's an Arab, and his mother-in-law is living in Gaza. We also know, by the way, that the premier or the prime minister of England is a Muslim today. That's the countries. We have a lot of Muslims in positions of influence and power today. Absolutely. And by the way, I have a concern down the road that may affect the situation over there. I could see that happening.
It's all Yiddish in the end. Cars and Depth says Palis are like Aztecs sacrificing their own children.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's, by the way, the Midianites did that.
Monkey Training says, if you value your kids, you'll destroy your enemies. Marcel Dufour says, how would Israel be if it was controlled by the Jews, but instead of Islamic people, it was Christians? I mean, let's say we took. I think what he's trying to say is, if we could snap our fingers and every Arab there would be a Christian,
you would not have war.
Would we even have a Gaza center? It would still be surrounded by Islam.
No, you'd have no. Well, no.
In this hypothetical, let's assume it's surrounded by Muslim.
No, you'd have. First of all, I don't know if you know who the Druze are. The Druze are a separate people. It's not exactly Islam, and the Druze have a philosophy. Whoever's in charge, they will work with. So you have Druze in the Israeli army, and it was a big tumult about 3 years ago because a full colonel, the highest ranking Druze officer, was killed in an assassination thing by an Arab. So The same way that you have the Druze in the army, you'd have Christians in the army with the Jews working together and cooperating.
Nick Warner says, pay flat earthers or atheists to be peacekeepers. Joe, use Einstein's formula to peer into the future and see if it will work. Time dilation.
Very nice. This is beyond me.
Yeah, that's count yourself lucky. Bring in Hassan Shami, talk to great logic, please. You know, it's funny. I thought about doing that. I've thought about this a lot. In fact, when I was talking to Hassan today, I was thinking about the idea because he's the one who was presenting. Because he seems to know a lot about history, and his take on history is very different from yours. And that I would love to see a conversation between the two of you. And I actually was talking with him about. I was like, you know, I actually this is how tense the situation is right now.
Okay? This is not a good time for this. Not now.
And so this here's the thing. You know, like my thought was like, I don't want to end up bringing him in, and by the time we're done with each other, we hate each other. You know, and we're cussing at each other.
I'm telling you,
I don't want that to happen.
I'm not going to talk to you know who the lady that cleans. I don't want to say the name.
Right.
My lady who comes to the house here to clean.
Yeah.
25 years. I'm not discussing this with her.
Right.
And she's from Morocco.
Right.
All right.
And he's from Syria, this guy, but he's very strongly pro Palestinian. But I understand what you're saying. My question is, if I can't talk to him, who the heck could talk? Like, I'm someone who, this is what I do for a living. I have conversations about politics and philosophy and history and morality, and I have conversations like that. And he has similar conversations. And when it comes to every other issue, he's very much politically aligned with me. And I was actually talking to him about how healthy it would be if there was a Christian, Ortho-Jewish, or Jewish Muslim sort of coalition of people who are basically America First type of perspective, and how it's sad it is that such a thing seems so difficult because of this one topic. And I said, I'm sure that you're on the other side. And he, and even back then, before anything was heated, he was like, yeah. I was like, I don't want to talk to you about it, because I just like, you're going to feel emotionally about it. I'm going to feel emotionally about it, and I don't want to. I want us to like walk out of here really liking each other. And what he did was this. He texted me shortly after. He didn't text me. He actually texted a mutual friend and had that person send regards to me from him as a way of sort of extending the olive branch. So I actually texted him today, and I told him I appreciate like him reaching out like that, and I thanked him, and we started texting with each other. And I've seen his Twitter feed. It's very virulently anti-Zionist, and I was like, it's sad that like I don't know that I could have a conversation with you that would not end with us actually really hating each other because of our cultural mindsets. Even though I think you're a good person, I don't believe for a second he wants to see Jews dead for the sake of Jews being dead. And I do think that there are a lot of Arabs who think like that.
Oh, definitely.
Which he denies. He denies that he says there's some percentage, but it's a very small percentage. He thinks it's less than 1%. He thinks it's a fraction of 1%. And I was like,
oh, I wish it were true.
Yeah.
I wish you were right.
But so he's telling me about how hospitable he's living in Dearborn, Michigan, and how hospitable the Dearborn.
Oh, this is a very Muslim area there.
Sure. Yeah. And that and how he hates Rashida Tlaib. He's like, that she's like, he thinks that she's a terrible human being. But on this issue, like, he's like, I still have to send out a tweet supporting her that she shouldn't be getting death threats. And I said, I don't think she should get death threats.
I don't think she should get death threats.
Right. But
I think she should be out of Congress. But
and I actually said to him, I said, I don't want to end up getting into a fight with you. But like, so like, that's why I was like, I don't want to even have this conversation. But then I was like, but then I'm thinking, like, if I don't have this conversation with you, Hassan, I don't know which two people can have this conversation, because we're both level-headed. And we both have sufficient respect for each other's intellect and goodwill, then good faith. That's not a matter of gaslighting. It's not a matter of trying to win an argument, but it's a matter of trying to just find what is truth. And that's why I was like, if I can't talk to him, I don't know which two people can talk.
You have to understand something. This is largely a religious thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you're dealing with religious things, there are two truths, or maybe three truths in three religions. In Christianity, and actually in Islam, there are 2 or 3 truths. In Judaism, there are 2 or 3 truths. And in Christianity, there's at least a half a dozen truths. You start because you have Roman Catholics, you have various denominations of Protestants, you have Greek Orthodox, you have Armenian Orthodox, you have, I can go on and on, there are more than that. Copts, you know, and they're all different. They have different perspectives on certain things. And these are things that people believe. And whether it's from their childhood or for whatever, and they've accepted. Your friend who was on that other time, what's the gentleman, the lawyer who?
Oh, it's Steve
Yeah.
Gosby.
Right, yeah, he was on, right.
Last time.
So I did not agree with everything he said. I wasn't going to start a war with him, but I didn't agree
Right.
with everything he said. Of course
Right.
not.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a nice
you're
man.
saying that's because
and the guy, fine,
a genuinely intelligent and good person.
Like, right. I said he's a good
right.
man, a nice man. I said
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I agree with him.
Because
your mother and I did not always agree. We agreed 98%, but we didn't always agree.
Really?
Maybe 99%. Maybe 90%. We
ever
agreed a lot. Was that unusual?
Yeah, I don't remember ever disagreeing with Mom. Except maybe about living in Israel, which she never wanted. Sling Edge says, if proven true, what's a good framework for a solution or action if U.S. weaponry that was provided to Afghanistan and Ukraine found its way to Hamas and or Palestine?
All right. Here's the problem.
That's de-escalation possible. Where do we go from here?
All right. Here's the problem.
It's a great question.
It's what I was hinting at it in what I said earlier on. The only thing they respect, the Palestinians, certainly Hamas Palestinians, is if you want them to attack us, we have to decimate them. I'm serious. I hate to say it. I don't enjoy having people killed, but it's the only way. Otherwise, we're going to have more of our guys killed and more attacks.
I'll tell you this. I heard another solution.
Can you speak up? I don't hear you.
Yeah, I heard another solution, which I'm actually saying softly because I hate saying even this solution. Okay, because I definitely don't want to see the death of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of Gazans. Okay,
it won't be that many. It doesn't have to be that many.
I mean, people are talking about. I mean, I'll tell you this: there are people who are so outraged over this attack. There are videos of people calling for, like, gas. Basically, I think the term they use is glass it and refer to Gaza. Meaning, like,
you know what I do think they should do, since militarily, get ready. Go in the tunnels with flamethrowers. The tunnels, that's what Hamas hides. With flamethrowers. Guys with shields in front, and then step back. So they won't lose a lot of guys doing that.
I mean, so yesterday I was thinking about, as far as a solution,
you can do poison gas too, but I know they may have gas masks, and that is against the law. That's against the Geneva Convention. So flamethrowers are not against the Geneva Convention. Yeah, I'm going to say I don't.
There's not. This is what I was watching this video yesterday, and they were talking about the concept of an extended occupation for like a generation, until, like, basically, and you level it until and then you basically give them a chance to vote. You want to continue an occupation?
Well, that's a good idea. The bottom line is you have to change the educational system. Back in '94, Susan Sachs of Newsday, I don't even think it exists anymore, she went in there and she wrote a whole thing, and she tried to make it parallel. So the settlers who say that all of Israel is Jewish because of the Bible, and then they had the Palestinians say, well, we're going to get it, we have to kill them, we have to do this. She tried to say we're the same. They weren't the same, obviously, because of their plans. But the bottom line is, anyone who would go in there now to a Palestinian school and tell them that they should have peaceful coexistence with the Israelis will be dead within 2 days, maybe 2 hours. That's the problem. And the only way, I thought for a while the Japanese situation. After World War II, we went in there, we re-educated the Japanese. But the difference was that the emperor, whom they worshipped, told them to be re-educated. And we don't have anyone whom they worship who will tell them that. And if he does, he'll no longer be worshipped.
Right, Kay. Good morning. Blessings to
20
you
pounds.
and your
Thank you.
blessings to your father.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Kelly Bruno says, I love Daddy. Thank you, sir. Delisandro Todaraba, great logic. If you're wise, listen to great logic. Vince
Thank you.
Clotho says, isn't rebuilding the temple to the start of the apocalypse? 12 years of Catholic education makes me scared of revelations.
That's Catholic version. It's not our version. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
We're not rebuilding the temple yet. It's not happening unless the Messiah should come. We say the Messiah comes.
Derna says people who think it's okay to chop up women and children will always behave that way, regardless of the identity of their victims. A culture of savagery belongs in the bin. It does not merit a state.
Yeah, you're not wrong. However, the Mongols did that, and there's a state called Mongolia today. I don't think they would do it today, but they did it then in the 13th century, 14th century. Piles of human skulls.
Lori, thank you for the super chat. Pony up. I heard the Shrine Jews found the 10th red heifer. This is what I keep hearing about this red heifer. Thing.
Yeah, there are red heifers.
There are always red heifers. There are always red. People look at it as a sign of the coming of Messiah because red heifer is part of religious ceremony, which they basically say that the 10th red heifer that in the history of the first two temples there were 9 red heifers, which is part of a purification ceremony for Jews. And which is way too detailed and beyond the scope of the show for me to go into. But the process involves an animal which has only red, a cow that is only red hair.
Cannot have one black hair.
Right. And I can't tell you how many videos I've seen through the last 8 years of here's another red heifer, here's another one, here's another one. These are all
we were driving in Israel, Diane and I saw a truck, and there were 2 red heifers in the back of the truck. You could see them, and I go, "Paras adumas." What? Yeah,
a paradumum is
the red heifer. The Hebrew word for red heifer.
And so they say that since it's being born, that's a sign of a messianic age is on the horizon. And I'm telling you right now, I am convinced that there have been probably thousands of red heifers that have been born in the last 2,000 years. So I think it's just that's when we'll have the next one, which will be the 10th one, is during a messianic age. But it's not. I don't think it's a sign or indicative of anything any more than anything else. Monk
by the way, I would like to make another. You want to finish with this?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to. I'm worried about you getting tired more than anything else.
Well, so I'm holding on at the moment. All right, I do want to say something else though.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting here. There's a headline. Iran's Khamenei says Tehran was not behind the Hamas attack. All right. First of all, all right. Let me read the whole thing here. Tehran was not involved. That's what they say. All right. Iran's top authority, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said on Tuesday. All right, but of course he hailed it as wonderful. Israel has to be destroyed. We kiss the hands of those who planned this attack on the Zionist regime. All right, this destructive earthquake, Hamas attack, has destroyed some critical structures in Israel, and they will not be repaired easily. Maybe. All right. Now, whether or not told them to do it, now they prepared them to do it. If I train you to be an assassin and then you go out and kill somebody, do I have a complicity in that? Especially if I train you and I know you hate Mr. X, and I also hate Mr. X.
Now you're bringing me to a video here that I was planning on sharing with you and get your thoughts on about Lindsey
about what
with Lindsey Graham on CNN. And I want to get your thoughts on it. And I have a feeling you and I are going to disagree on this one. But this is what we this is the video.
Well, I don't usually agree with CNN too much, although they weren't that bad on this.
Yeah. Let's check this out.
Well, this is Senator Graham, so he's not really CNN. Go ahead. I don't hear it.
You don't hear it?
No.
Wait a second. No one's been hearing my things? That doesn't make sense.
I don't hear him. I hear you.
You in my chat. Do you guys hear it? There's no audio? Low audio. We don't either. There's no sound, muted. How is that possible? Did you guys hear my sound, my chauffeur that I've been blowing?
I didn't hear that either.
Yeah!
That's not what it sounded like.
Oh my gosh. No. You know how many times I blew that chauffeur like 47 times?
Nope. We weren't Yotzi.
I hate their preset settings. All right, so for those of you who sent $20, I've been blowing this every single
there
time,
it is. There
and no one but me heard it. So
I heard it once actually
apologize
before.
to you, Vic Weed Dealer. There's your chauffeur. To everyone who sent me, I'm gonna give 3 of the real war whoops. This is to anyone who sent me a $20 super chat and you didn't get to hear.
Tequilas to
Well, no, these are not tequilas to golas. These are like war whoops. Yeah.
Oh, I heard that. I heard that before.
Did you?
I wonder what that was.
All right. Here, I'm going to give him one of those. Jim, Mr. Great Lawgic, is it true that Hamas creation was encouraged by
That sounds like
Israel?
a truck stopping fast.
You know, I'm going to come back to that one because that's a long one. I want to get to this. Well, I'm going to come back to that one, AD. So this is here's Lindsey Graham.
What I would do is I would bomb Iran's oil infrastructure. The money financing terrorism comes from Iran. It's time for this terrorist state to pay a price for financing and supporting all this chaos. Yes, if you're the Iranians, if it were up to me, this war escalates, I'm coming after you.
I think this is what I'm trying to clarify here, because I'm wondering
us
if
in Israel,
the United States and
Israel.
I
want to be crystal clear.
The United. Let me just understand you. Just to be clear, you're saying that you would want the United States and Israel to bomb Iran, even in the absence of direct evidence of their involvement in this attack.
Yeah. So if there's an escalation, Abby, if there's people's throats being cut on television as Israel goes into Gaza and they're threatening to kill the hostages, if Hezbollah is unleashed on Israel in the north, it will be because Iran is supporting that. If you don't get the connection between Iran and this terrorist activity by Hamas and Hezbollah, you're missing a lot. This is a terrorist state that has American blood on its hands. It is now time to dismantle the financing system of terrorism if this war escalates. Yes, I would do a joint military operation. I tell the Iranians today, if the war escalates, you will pay a price. You will be out of the oil business. I want to be crystal clear on that. And if we don't do that, what do you expect to happen in the future? Do you expect Israel to forgive and forget? Biden didn't mention one word about Iran today, and I want to support the president. I'm supporting the.
I'm just going to pause it here. I didn't hear the rest of this yet. I want to get your thoughts. I'll tell you, and I'll actually start with my thoughts. Okay, before I ask you for your thoughts, my personal thoughts are this dude is out of his mind. I think that's crazy. I think that's such an insane perspective that you want to bring us into another Iraq situation. You want to go in there and just start destabilizing a nation. This is not, the people are calling this Israel's 9/11, and maybe it is given the scale of death compared to the population. And yes, this is the most Jewish civilians to die in one day since the Holocaust. And I understand this was a terrible tragedy, but the reality is this: it's not America's tragedy. It's not. It's Israel's tragedy, and the idea. And I definitely want these hostages saved, and I definitely think that as far as taking steps to protect, you want to take retribution steps in order to protect Israelis in the future. Power to you, but the idea that America should say because Gaza did a vicious attack against Israel, that if they kill hostages, that if it gets escalated at all, that America is going to attack Iran, to me, is awful on so many levels. I think it's I mean, and even if Iran, what has been funding Hamas, even if they have been funding Gaza, I think that there's question there. You can have moral questions about it, whether it's like, there's the morality of going after all just because the wealthy people there are spending money in Gaza. So now you're going to but I also think that it will create so much anti-Semitism because Americans who are tired of going to war are basically going to say we're fighting Israel's war for it, and we're not even fighting their enemy. We're fighting against Iran. And I think that I don't think that using this as a justification is something that is healthy in the long term for anyone. I know Lady Lawgic vehemently disagrees with me on this, but I feel very strongly about this. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are. If you think I'm wrong, so then tell me why you think I'm wrong.
Okay. First of all, I do believe that definitely indirectly, Iran's involved. Not directly, but indirectly, maybe directly. So for them to lie is normal. So what they say is worthless. That's the first thing. The second thing is I blame President Obama for not supporting the revolutionaries back when he was in power. We might have been able to overthrow the mullahs at that point. There was a good chance to do it. And that would have been a wonderful thing if that had happened. And the CIA wanted to go in there and he ordered them not to do it. So that was something else. That was a mistake. I don't think we would need a general war with Iran. I think that would be a mistake too. However, we have missiles that could probably blow up their whole nuclear capabilities. And
are you talking about the nuclear capabilities? That's different than going after their oil to try and hit them because of this.
I didn't say go after the oil. I said I think we should destroy their nuclear capabilities. And possibly, although it's going to cost everyone a fortune, put an embargo on their oil if you can, although that's difficult because Russia will probably buy the oil.
And won't it just drive up the price of gas to like $10 a gallon?
Will do that. The point is you want to weaken the government so eventually it collapses because the government is the parent cancer and Hamas and Hezbollah are the cancers that have migrated. And so are the Houthi and others. If they are gone as terrorist suppliers, it will make the world a much better place. There's no question about it. They are a problem.
I'm not saying that Iran is innocent. I certainly don't think that there's a whole bunch of humanitarian
humanitarian folks
that are running Iran. I'm simply saying I think that it's long-term strategically foolish to
I don't think we should go.
America.
I don't think we should invade Iran. I don't know that he was saying that either. I'm not sure, but I don't think we should invade. No, that's crazy.
That would be to me. That would be insane.
I say it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Saying crazy.
But
my really bad news.
My personal take on it is keep America out of this. Just keep them out. Just let Israel do what Israel's going to do, and then whatever.
Well, you want to intimidate Hezbollah because, frankly, Israel doesn't. Remember something, if for a minute Syria, Egypt, and Jordan really smell blood, they'll all attack.
Okay, so what I understand what you're
attack.
So what I'm saying is,
I think that it's an existential threat to Israel.
There's a difference.
I mean, in spite of all the things, the medicines they get from Israel, this they get from Israel, that thing, Israel has brought so many blessings to the world that doesn't matter to them. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter to them the same way it doesn't matter to these guys if their youth are killed.
Right? No, I understand. It does that doesn't matter to them the same way Trump lowering insulin prices for the black community is not making black women vote for Trump. It's like there's just a certain mindset that they have that's like that, and that's going to be predominating their every thought and feeling. But so I definitely agree with you on that perspective. I'll tell you what I want from America is simply this: just give your blessing to Israel for them to handle their own mess however they best see fit, and say we support their decision and we stand behind them, and that this is what they need to do to deal with the terrorism that's attacking them, without America being put in a position of contributing anything to support that effort to suppress this Gazan uprising. So that's what I want from America. That's basically where I'm at. I don't want to come to America for money. Definitely not troops. I don't want to encourage
America
them
is
into
giving
war.
Israel money. Effectively, they're giving them weapons.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so I mean,
that's a lot of money. It's money.
You're right. You're right. That's true. But I'm saying is like I'm not in a camp that I want to be pushing America to be doing anything along those lines from where I'm sitting at here. I have a bunch of super chats that I want that I still need to get to here. AD says, "Dear Mr. Great Lawgic, is it true that Hamas creation was encouraged by Israel to counterbalance the PLO?"
In one word answer, yes. What? It was goofed. They goofed.
All right. Trenton Paul says, I don't even know what that means, but I owe you another one, Trenton. So I'm going to give you a second one because you sent me another one of these. Yeah. Shaul. That was political gaslighting. Nothing more. Maybe. Could be. He also had another one. Shaul's a friend of mine. He says, I heard Good Lawgic likes red herring. That's when we were talking about the red heifers before.
Yeah, it's true.
That is true. I do like red herring. Jim Salas says, Joe, these insane neocons are trying to get a war with Iran since 2002. They have been looking for any excuse and trying to goad them into doing something stupid. Since then, Ladybug Lindsay needs to be reunited with McCain. Yeah. I got a bunch more to get to. Simon Contrain says that photo, this is going back to the attack on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, looks photoshopped. Don't forget, propaganda is a form of warfare. Anything to make Jews look bad in the eyes of the world. It is possible. It's very weird to attack with a palm. To attack them, it's very weird to go in there armed with a lemon, which is literally what they were going up there with, and prayer shawls like that. I don't even understand the concept as to what's happening there that is allegedly happening. So maybe it was photoshopped. I don't know, and then maybe that's why the story wasn't picked up anywhere else. Philip Coggin says Israeli AF in 48 was flying checkmate BF-109s in surplus Nazi uniforms, flying against Spitfires and P-47s.
You know more than I. Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Alien Baby, member for 10 months, says when are we putting on our level 4 armored yarmulkes and defending Israel? Hamas can't exist after this. I'll tell you this. I certainly don't want Americans putting on any sort of armored yarmulkes or any armor at all. Delano Sanders says, ask Dad about Muhammad meeting a priest and a rabbi and forming his religion from them. Muhammad, okay. I guess. Muhammad.
It's known that when Muhammad was running caravans for his wife Khadijah, that he went to the edge of the desert and he met with, I would say, a priest. He met with monks, a number of monks most probably, and rabbis. He also knew about Judaism from when he went to Medina. There were 3 Jewish tribes in Medina that he ultimately expelled, and one of which he executed the men. So he definitely interacted with them, and that certainly influenced his religion. There's no question about that.
Yeah. AD says Schwartz is sitting in his room wearing only a top hat when Steinberg strolls in. Why are you sitting? Why are you sitting here? It's all right, says Schwartz. Nobody comes to visit, but why the hat? Maybe somebody will come. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, AD. That's great.
Sometimes
have you met my dad? So
sometimes we make a joke. There are some people who were not raised religious, and they want to become religious, and they don't know what to do. So what they do is they adopt certain things that are very, very strict, and on other things which are very fundamental, they don't know what to do. So we sometimes joke that, as far as their Judaism, that they're sitting naked with a top hat.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your mother and I used to joke about it.
I never that you guys were always the funny ones in the family.
Yes, the USS Liberty.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm just going to say this.
They strafed it.
Yeah, so the USS Liberty.
67 war. Yeah.
I'm just going to point this out to you, Job for 9. What motivation? What possible motivation? This is like saying always remember the armor,
remember the main.
Yeah, remember the main. It's like remember the Alamo. Remember Bighorn. Like little Bighorn. Like what is that?
I don't know if the Israelis made a mistake or not. I don't know.
I don't understand what motivation could they when they ended up paying out compensation and had to and dealt with embarrassment and risk harming their basically only friend in the world. What is their possible motivation? What is it? What do you think their motivation was? Yeah, we're gonna basically punch our only friend on the planet in the face. Like I don't understand the thinking. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand what you think their thing. It's like, yeah, Jews are so like smart at everything, but they're very, very stupid as to like how to deal with their friends. Like I don't understand. I don't get it. Lori says, have you read the speech from Khalid Mashal, leader of Hamas, in regard to this Friday? Thoughts?
I have not seen the speech.
Yeah, I haven't either. Chugi Show says, what is the most important thing you feel I need to understand about this conflict? What key idea I should tell other people who don't understand what is going on? Thank you for being here. Great logic.
All right. In simple terms, I would say that Hamas wants to destroy Israel. And they don't want to compromise. Even when they offer, in quotes, compromises and truces, basically, and they say, give us something tangible. So for something like land, for something intangible, or we'll give you 10 years of respite. But if Israel gives them land for 10 years of respite, if they keep the 10 years, at the end of that, they'll be so powerful that Israel will really have a problem to survive. Because they'll be they want the West Bank. If they have the West Bank, they're right near Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. They want Jerusalem, actually. I don't believe that they know Israel will never give them what they're asking for. They want to have an excuse to keep the conflict, to fuel the conflict so they get support among their own guys. I think that's what it's about.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I have a whole bunch of Rumble rants that I want to run through pretty quick. I feel embarrassed that I missed them for so long. Short Post Dave says, great logic. Why didn't Israel keep all the territory gained in the 6-day war? Short answer. We're doing this lightning round because it's 11:46, and I want to get you out of here sometime before your 83rd birthday. So,
the 1 second, your stepmother is ringing me up. What's up? I'm on the show. What is it? So come up here. I don't know. I can't help you with your computer now. Bye-bye. Sorry. All right. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
What was that question? I'm sorry.
Why didn't Israel keep all the territory gained in the 6-day war?
Why did they? They offered to give it back. The Arabs wouldn't, but the Arabs wouldn't take it back on the terms that they wanted. The Arabs only wanted to.
They're asking why. The question is, why did they not keep all the territory gained in the 6-day war?
Oh, okay. They gave back the Sinai to Egypt in exchange for the peace treaty. And when they did it, I said, all right, look, I mean, it's Egypt and it's the Sinai. Now, I said it's the Sinai, and it's not so terrible. But the bottom line is that giving back the territory would have entailed a lot of other issues, and certainly Jerusalem, which has and was the capital of Israel thousands of years ago, and is the holiest city. It's the holiest city in Judaism. That basically, they don't want to give that back. And why should we give that back?
Okay. Johnny Reb says, love the way the IDF defended the Golan 73. It was a brilliant defense. He also says, apartheid is a ridiculous term for South Africa. And since that ended in South Africa, the persecution has been tenfold worse against the former oppressors. The South American regime is also totally incompetent.
Oh, yes. And you know what's happened to South Africa? I'm going to tell you something. My new in-laws, meaning my wife's in-laws, he's a lawyer, or was, in South Africa, had a thriving law practice. The rand fell to 5 cents, 6 cents from $1.40. You know what that means? He sold his practice for next to nothing. The only reason he's not starving is he happened to buy an apartment in Israel 15 years ago. That's the only reason he's not starving. And really? They ruined the country, these people. They seriously ruined the country. That's what they did.
John Reb says, what about the Nazi collection to the Arab states during World War II timeframe? They passed off the Nazi anti-Jew ideology.
Oh boy, oh boy,
unclean and civilization-destroying myths.
Boy, oh boy, I showed the film on this. All right,
we watched a whole movie on this. And
not a whole. I showed the film. It's 12 minutes long. It's Dawa Part 6. It's put out by Clarion. DAWA Part 6. Husseini. You could find the link that way. DAWA Part 6. Husseini. If you don't put that in, you won't get it. Put it in. I don't think you need to put it in YouTube. Just put it in with your search bar.
In Google.
DAWA Part 6.
Dawa.
Husseini. What?
Dawa.
Dawa, yeah. Dawa means call to or light, more the call. Is a call to jihad. All right. And it explains him, what he did. It explains how the Nazis, gives names of Nazis that worked for Syria and for Egypt. And what it doesn't mention is that Israel assassinated a couple of them who were trying to set up rockets in Egypt that would reach and destroy Israel. So they blew up a couple, they killed a couple of them and the rest fled.
All right. And Doug says, thank you for covering this. Hello, Papa Lawgic. God bless you both. Thank you for your support. And Doug, one of my most dedicated mods in the Rumble rants, in the Rumble chat. I really appreciate you. Lodestorm says, my first time experiencing Dad, good Lawgic. Thanks for your knowledge and for answering everyone's questions. Johnny Reb says, Druze can serve in the Syrian army. Mini Tika thank you for the $20 rant. Says, unless you both and your family agree that you don't have to agree 100% to like a person, and you don't have to like a person to agree with them. This is definitely true. Johnny Reb says, thermobaric bombs clear tunnels. Oh, so there you go.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
All right.
Makes sense. As they should clear the tunnels out and destroy them.
Johnny Reb.
That they should do, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know. Yeah.
John, I wonder why those towns are allowed to stay open, but Johnny Reb said also for another 20 says, for great logic, biggest rant ever. Read the Rumble rants. I've been reading I was late on the Rumble rants, but I'm reading them now. I'm going through them. So, and I apologize my delay in that. And thank you, Trigger, for trying to let me know in locals that my horn was off. We covered the USS Liberty allegation after you sent this. Appreciate the chat. Dennis was the one who disagreed with you. He was the one who initially said that America supported. This is a follow-up to an earlier that you and I discussed where he was saying that America would not exist if not for America, that Israel would not exist but for America's support in the War of Independence. And he says now, and you said, no, that's not true. Truman basically expressed support but did not give any support. That's what you said when we addressed his first super chat.
Later on, yes, we helped.
This is what he says, with respect.
Yeah, we helped them in the 60s. Well, in 70s,
but he's asking a question, so I'm hoping you can answer this. Where did cash to buy the planes, tanks, ammo, weapons, supplies, where did they come? Also, who supplied them at the amounts to fight the wars? It's not a gotcha question, billions of dollars. So I think he's asking you in good faith that he thinks that you're mistaken, and that the only way that Israel, just so everyone who joined late can understand his question, he's basically alleging that the only way Israel could have ever survived day one when they were attacked on their Independence Day was if they had great financial support from America. And my father,
as far as I know, they have had financial support from American Jews, but I don't believe from the American government. Later on, they got foreign aid from the American government. That is correct, in military equipment. And in fact, during the 73 war, pardon me, Nixon, God, I said this, maybe not this time. Nixon sent planes. He sent American planes to Israel. They landed in Israel. The Israelis painted over the American stars, put on Jewish stars, and took off to fight. Yes. During the 67 war, the Israelis did not need that much because they destroyed 2/3 of the Egyptian Air Force on the ground.
They were still on the ground, right?
And so forth, which was, in a sense, a miracle that they got away with it. That's a whole other story. There's a film called 6 Days of Miracles. You put that in, you take a look at that. It goes through the whole war. It shows you how they got Jerusalem and everything else. In quote, 6 Days of Miracles, Mizrahi, Mizrahi or CHI. You'll be able to see that. That will show you that.
Dennis also follows up with, if the U.S. supported Egypt, would they gone the same?
Would they what?
I don't know. I don't know what he's asking.
I don't know what the question is.
I'm not sure either. Cleve, thank you for the support. I appreciate it.
We gave money to Egypt. And we gave equipment to Egypt to parallel Israel after Egypt made the deal, the peace deal. Not before.
Cleve, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Vince Clortho says, I think your father's wrong. The problem is more economic/territory and power than religious. I mean, I think that territory, I don't think he denies that territory is a big...
Of course, this is part of it. But I'm saying the suicide aspects, the suicide aspects, the willingness to die, this is religious. That's what I'm saying. The territory is...
I want to ask you, why is it that it's considered by any Muslims to be a fulfillment of religious doctrine to die specifically for Palestine rather than some parchment of real estate in the Midwestern America?
First of all, very interesting. What's his name?
Because I mean, it's not. I mean, Saudi Arabia is the root of the Muslim world, right? So it's not Israel.
This is an area that's part of the House of Islam, the Darul Islam, and it's intrinsically, they think of it as their territory. Now, of course, they thought of Spain as their territory for a while, and they gave up on Spain eventually. But this is more, as far as the idea that Jerusalem is the third holiest city, yeah, probably, but some research has been done on this. It's not so simple to say that the fact is they want it, they want to control it. When they controlled it, they didn't make a big deal about it, honestly. In other words, when they had it, but when we got it, they made a big deal about it. That's really what happened there.
Cleese says, Kleenex fund for great logic, Fifth Commandment and all.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? He's miles away from me right now.
I'm fine. I have a box of them sitting here.
Petty, the Fifth Commandment, for those of you who are unfamiliar with your 10 Commandments, is honor thy father and mother. Petty Honest Throwaway says, good logic. Thank you for a great guest. Oh, you're very welcome. It's my privilege. Great logic. Thank you for joining us and passing your knowledge to us. You both are much appreciated. You're very kind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Emily Moore says, I can listen to your dad for hours.
Thank you.
Nick Warner, Isaiah 17, Iran staging in around Damascus. Thoughts? See, okay, so I want to be clear. I don't know if you're familiar with Isaiah 17 specifically. Are you, Dan?
No.
This is something that I noticed that happens frequently, and I want to just be clear here, and I'm not knocking you, Nick. This is something a lot of Christians seem to know a lot more about Isaiah than Jews, or even religious Jews who spend a lot of time studying Torah or Talmud or things of that nature. We don't go through the prophets that with nearly the same depth or even on some of them a read through very much. And Isaiah happens to be one we don't read very often. If anything, like we'll read like certain selected passages if it comes out in certain weeks as part of our religious services on the Sabbath, a tiny little paragraph here or there that might be from Isaiah, it might be from Book of Joshua, it might be from one of the other things. But I find that religious Catholics seem to really absorb Isaiah specifically, or the Book of Job is another one that they tend to read and study far more in depth.
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Give me a half.
Sure.
I'm going to get Isaiah. I'm going to pull the book out.
Oh, you don't have to.
Okay, I can pull it out and read it. I mean, I have it in Hebrew here. I mean, it's not the.
Oh, you want to read about?
I would read what it tells you. What verse? I'll read the verses. Yeah,
but I think it's it's a chapter 17, right?
The whole chapter.
I don't know. He says Isaiah 17. That sounds like a chapter to me. I don't.
I know they say in the end of days that we will conquer Damascus.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. We're going to conquer Damascus.
All right.
The end of days. That much I do know.
I'm not disputing that. I'm sure there are passages there that people can find allegory from during current events in numerous ways, and I'm certainly not rejecting the prophecy of Isaiah at all. I mean, I simply am saying that most Orthodox Jews know relatively little about. And my father's a rabbi.
We don't study the prophets that much.
We don't study it very much at all. Hamronic says, "What is the sign of the Messianic age? I'm a Christian. I have no idea. Thank you." We're also not really into signs. We're supposed to. I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you this much about Jewish thought. Okay, we are taught to believe that Messiah is coming every day, and then tomorrow that it's going to come every day. But as far as this is a sign, that's a sign, this is a sign, there are some Orthodox Jews or other Jews who will frequently point to something and try to find some sort of inspiration or perspective of that. But that's not really something that's supported by rabbinic authority, that's something Jews are supposed to be doing. That's one of the distinctions, I think, between Judaism and Christianity or Islam, where we're not supposed to be trying to figure out what signs there are, even though there are signs that are foretold in prophecies. That's just not what Judaism is about. Certainly on a day-to-day basis, there's supposed to be there's no coming of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or things like that. We don't have stuff like that. There just isn't. We have certain things that are thrown in prophecies that get told over about things that will happen, and most of those are things that we don't really understand, that there's rabbinic conflict about what it really even means. So just in a basic interpretation. Okay, so like there's a telling of a war between Gog and Magog. Okay, this is something that I actually brought up when I was talking to Hassan today, and he said that Muslims have the same telling about it. And he's like, "Oh, I know all about Gog and Magog." I said, "I don't even know if Gog and Magog is supposed to be good and evil. I don't know if Gog is the leader of Magog, or Gog is and Magog is a nation and Gog is the leader, and they're fighting against some other force. Or I don't know if Gog is some nation and is fighting against Magog, that's a different nation." And I've heard rabbinic authority which gives all of those explanations, and that's why it's like for me to sit here trying to figure out what it actually means. I'm just like, that's not something that we're supposed to really invest a great deal of our efforts in, because I feel like most people who try to invest their efforts in there are likely to be wrong. And even if they're right, I will suspect that they're wrong, because I'll think that I've heard other people give their explanations and they're always wrong. So why should I assume that you're the one who got it right? So that's why, I personally never invest much time in it. But if you have anything beyond that, Dad, that you can offer, you're a rabbi. I'm not. So
no, I'm not into this really. What I would like to do, and we're going to conclude soon, I would like to tell you 2 things. Just to give you an idea, to take as a takeaway of what happened over in Israel. An Israeli grandmother was murdered by Hamas terrorists, with her killers posting it on her own Facebook account. Describing her as pure and good, the unnamed woman's granddaughter, I give the name of the granddaughter, claimed the horrifying videos were shared publicly on social media, reportedly showing the elderly woman being slaughtered in her own home. A terrorist came home to her, killed her, took her phone, filmed the horror, and published on her Facebook page, she said. This is how we found out. Now, I'm going to tell you one other story. Back during the first Intifada, which is around the time that Hamas was created, in Shechem, Nablus, there was a yeshiva there. And there were two men learning in the yeshiva. And their man comes in, one of the terrorists, and he looks at the phone. And the guy had in the phone, must have written my wife. So he pushes the button, and the wife answers the phone. And he says in Hebrew, "Lady, listen, I am killing your husband." And he shot him dead. She heard a shot, her husband was killed. Then they took the two bodies, and they hung them outside the yeshiva, outside the window, excuse me. There was an Italian news person there, took a picture, went all over the world. They called up the owner of that news system, whatever it was, I don't know, it was a paper or whatever, called them up, and they told him, if you ever do this again, we cannot be responsible for the safety of your reporters. That's why you don't see any of this stuff generally. Parting thought. All right.
It's very sobering. Can I get to the largest super chats before I let you go, Daddy?
But quickly. It's midnight.
I'm trying, Daddy. I'm trying. I'm really trying. AD says, Isaiah 57:7, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations. To you, my friends, I pray.
We say this in prayer all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a common phrase that in prayer every Friday night. We actually say that incorporated in our prayers. Jim Satala says, I have a solution to this problem. We make a trade with South Africa, all the Bedouin Arabs in Gaza and West Bank, to them for all the white farmers. It'll be a win-win and make a great TV show.
Very nice. Yeah.
Viola Pride. I'm gonna give you. Viola is one of my diggers. Rabbi Tuvia Singer on YouTube does deep dives and explains all of Isaiah. Great teachings. Love seeing Papa Lawgic horn for the diggers. You got it. Big Red Snake says Gog and Magog are Arab nations. Their eschatology is the Christian one in verse. They are dead set against you and have a whole thing that in the end, even the trees will call out where you guys are hiding. Yeah. And by you guys, I think he means the Jews. So,
well, if you want, the Talmud says the Gog and Magog have two signs. The sign of one is the bear, the other is the eagle. Iran's sign is the bear.
There you go. There you go. And the eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be wrong.
Maybe you know what? Maybe that's why the Christian right is frequently pushing for war with
Iran.
Although you would think that the bear is not, when people hear the bear, they think of Russia. They don't think of Persia. They don't think of Iran.
Iran had the bear long before Russia existed. Bear goes back 2,000 years.
Okay, so let me see. Margot Rana says that was the best old Jewish couple interaction ever. Love the show. Thanks, great logic. You're very welcome. It was pretty classic right there. I'm just want to do a quick check to see if anyone else has a specific question for you. Dragon Slayer says, is it true that the land used to belong to the Philistines, and didn't Goliath have 4? There were certain portions of the territory that were when
he had 4 brothers, but
David took 5 stones.
Yeah, but he only killed Goliath. He didn't kill all of them.
Right. His dad is now base Lawgic for the phone. There you go. There you go. And you're getting a lot of thank yous here. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jojo. We now understand when Okay, so that's a word for God that we don't use. Said destroy all. He meant destroy all. Any seed of evil can take root and take control. There's a plant kudzu. It is the vine that ate the south. Shalom. I'm not sure where he's saying destroy all, other than like when they were first settling in the land of Israel.
Right, that was it.
30, the 20. It's what's it?
3,000 years ago.
3,300 years ago. Yeah. Dad, do you believe in the rapture?
No, not really.
Renee Maris says it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Monk and Train says the F-15 Eagle was originally made for American forces. Nixon gave F-15s and F-16s to keep Israel from using nukes on the Yom Kippur War. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. If you need to go, Daddy, I'm gonna let you go and I'll finish these up.
Okay.
After you go, I thank Dad. I love you. I thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
You were really awesome tonight. I hope you feel better with that.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. All the best, everybody.
All
Be
right.
well. Thank you for your generosity, both in the comments and the fiduciary area. Appreciate very, very much. Have all the best to you. Okay, so.
Oh, one last question, Dad.
Yes.
And there's a rumor asking what you think of Ginos.
Who?
Ginos, Jino, Jews in name only. It's a term.
They're Jews. If they're born Jewish, they're Jews.
Okay. I've ranted against Ginos in the past.
One never knows. We always condemn the behavior, not the person.
Right. Well, that's part of why I'm always yelling about Ginos. So, anyway, I love you, Dad. I'll explain it to you another time. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to get to the rest of these
super
chats.
All the best. Right.
Take care, Daddy.
Good night.
I'm going to kick him out there. I feel uncomfortable that I just kicked him out, but I think I was doing him a favor. So, Nick Warner says they get 6 billion chant death to America. Trenton Paul said I meant Lindsey Graham. Oh, that was with the earlier super chat. Yeah, you just gotta say ladybugs. God bless you, Great Logic. Thank you and stay well. Thank you, Della. Whenever Lindsey Graham gives public statement, a closet grows cold and lonely. Anyway, pleasure to having Great Logic. Best beard on the show. Yeah, I can't argue with that, Bob. That got me mad. Janelle says, explain Lindsay's ladybugs to great for us, Joe. No, I'm not doing that. Not doing that. No. Someone already try to make me uncomfortable with him with that whole joke about a Jewish guy sitting in a top hat. No, I know when I'm being trolled. Okay, I'm not stupid. I know when I'm being trolled. I'm not explaining that. When I first heard about that, I was just, I was like reacting like the way Homer reacts to Marge's sisters. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge. I think I got this. Thank you. 1972 Olympic massacre that was justified by Palestine. History shows their hate and destruction. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of history which shows their hate and destruction. Howie Brown says, "Dad, do you believe in the rapture?" Covered that. Renee, thank you for that as well. Monk and Train got you. If your father is Great Logic, then God made mad. If your father is Great Logic and you're Good Logic, will OK Logic make an appearance on the show? This is a lose-lose question. I just realized I'm being trolled. This is totally a lose. There's no way I can possibly answer that without I'm moving on. Ben George says it's 100% religious. The question is whether prophecy is being fulfilled or people are hell-bent on fulfilling what they read as prophecy. Yeah, look, I'm sure a lot of people feel it's religious. And that's definitely true. Francisco Linares, tell me the secret to Jewish money. The root of the conflict is religious. Muslims of the region only respect authoritarian rule from Islamic power, for the Quran demands that, as Muhammad said to. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that they look at, I think they deem that if they punch you in the face and you offer an olive branch, they deem that as a sign of weakness, and that it's a sign that you need to be. It's time to put you out of your misery. And it's a difference in that's the difference in Middle Eastern mindset versus Western mindset that a lot of people just seem to completely disregard. Nick Warner says, great and good. Thank you for your knowledge. You're very, very welcome. AD says, may God bless you too. Much love to you both. Thank you so much. And Shaw says, an honor your discomfort at the earlier joke. Thank you so much. I had this was I had a fun time tonight. I really had a great time here. I think I covered everyone. So I'm going to be 100% sure. Oh, Shipwreck and Rumble Rand says, thank you for your commentary. The situation has friends scared out of their minds because of the cascading effect, potentially Iranian involvement, Pakistani involvement with India and China and Russia. I don't really think that these, and I don't really think that these foreign nations feel sufficiently vested in Palestinian efforts that they necessarily want to jump into the fray, especially if America stays out of it. And that's another reason that America should stay out. I don't think that if they feel that America will jump in, if they jump in, so it's almost like, you know what it's like. It's like if two fourth grade kids are fighting with each other and they both have older siblings, that one is in 8th grade and another is in 11th grade. And the older siblings are watching those two 4th graders, or even let's say a 4th grader versus a 3rd grader, and they're just watching. And the one who's a 3rd grader basically looks and his older brother, who's in 8th grade, says, I can help him out and go after the 4th grader. But if I do that, then his older brother, the 11th grader, is going to come in here and decimate me. So I'm just better off if I stay out of this fight. So that's why I'm saying, if America, as the 11th grader here, stays out of the fight, but if the 11th grader jumps in, then the 8th grader almost has to jump in, right? I mean, that's what. I mean, possibly, unless he's scared of getting the snot beaten out of him. So I think America staying just removed from this is. I think there's a lot of reasons it's probably better, but a lot of people who love me don't like me saying that. I'm just telling you what my honest opinion is. Flightless says, I have a friend in the IDF who's being deployed. He's a kid I watched learn to walk, now fighting in a war. It's very, very sad. Prayers for all the sons and daughters facing the unthinkable in these times. Shalom for Israel. Amen. Amen. And Carrie Lake. Why am I looking at Carrie Lake? Why are you talking about Carrie Lake? What happened to Carrie Lake? Something happened to her? Carrie Lake? Oh, she's running for Senate? Wow. Okay. Wow. Go Carrie Lake. All right. I've been so wrapped up with this. I'm planning on getting back to American politics next week. Definitely planning on getting back to that, because I'm getting tired of this topic. And yeah, tomorrow I'm probably going to start transitioning back to it tomorrow. So I think that it's time for me to start getting back into American politics, which for me is a much, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I can't tell you. Who knows how the news will blow tomorrow, right? If I knew that, I'd be in a different business where I'm forecasting, and supposedly they make more money. Although I'm not sure how forecasters make much money. But yeah, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in the stock market. That's where I'd be. All right. So with that, it seems we have come to the conclusion of yet another fine episode of the following program. I thank you all for joining me. And again, thank you to my dad, who was amazing in answering countless questions and providing vision and perspective in ways that I can only sit here. I'm going to tell you this, and something I was thinking of saying to him, but I didn't say to him. There's a concept called nachas, which is like that a parent sees their child and feels a certain sense of pride. And I actually have I was having this past weekend, a whole discussion with people about what the concept of what that is, like when a parent has pride in a child and what that's really rooted in emotionally. And I was having a very deep philosophical conversation with some of my friends about that. But the term that Jews use for that is nachas, like that parental pride in a child. And I got to tell you, when my father was up here talking at one point, I don't remember what he was talking about. I just was like, I felt like I had nachas from him. And I was like, it's very few parents who are so cool that their own kid feels nachas. And I just did. So I don't know if my dad's ever going to see that, but anyway, I thank you all for joining me. And I'm going to send you on your way to Mr. Nicholas Ricata. And another episode of following program in the books. God willing, tomorrow I will be on Locals at some point. Make sure you get to goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. That's our show. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Good night and Godspeed.